Let the record show it's 6:08. I will call to order the special Durant City Council meeting of November the 27th, 2018. This is a special agenda for a public hearing. Before we have the roll call, I'd like to call upon our Chief of Police, Mr. David Hauser, Chief Hauser, to lead us in an invocation, and Vice Mayor Hitchcock to lead us in a flag salute. If you would, stand if you can, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and you can be seated, please. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Here.
Councilmember Groby. Here. Councilmember Dills.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Here.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. For the record, all members are present. We have a full quorum. I want to thank everyone for being here, those in the audience, and council members for their attendance. We'll begin with our agenda item. Our first order of business is under public hearing for the purpose of giving members of the public an opportunity to be heard prior to any vote on the proposed Project Hickory Economic Development Project Plan. And council will be considering under item number 2 on the agenda an ordinance in consideration of the public hearing portion. I'd like to at this time introduce Mr. Paul Bunce, Mr. Dan Batchelor, and Jeff Sabin. Paul, if you would actually allow you to introduce Dan and Jeff.
Okay, good evening. This is our second public hearing on the Project Hickory, also known as Tubicex Durant, which is the corporate name of the Spanish company that is proposing to locate here in Durant. We're pleased to be here, and as you said, we have Dan Batchelor and Jeff Sabin here to give another brief overview for the benefit of the public that's here of the project, tell more about the details of what's being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and distinguished members of council. I'm Dan Batchelor with the Center for Economic Development Law. We're here to give you an overview of this project. It represents, in our view, a chance for the community of Durant to claim a special opportunity for the benefit of positive and healthy growth. I'm going to ask my colleague and partner Jeff Sabin to give you an overview of that project and respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Batchelor.
Evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
If I could get the presentation pulled up, please. This is similar to the presentation that we received a couple weeks ago, but it's been shortened. We're not going over TIF 101, so if you guys have any questions about how TIF works, I can answer those. But otherwise, I'm just going to go over the basics of the proposal that's in front of you tonight. Basically, Salem Tube Inc., which as Mr. Bunce pointed out is the U.S. company that's owned by a Spanish conglomerate The city and the Durant Industrial Authority have previously entered into an economic development agreement by which DIA is to convey a project site down by the new US 70 bypass and Country Club Road to Salem Tube, and Salem Tube is going to construct and operate a metal tubing fabrication and manufacturing facility. As part of that economic development agreement, DIA is slated to provide development financing assistance for the first 10 years after that project becomes operational. A precondition to a precondition to Salem Tube's obligation to construct and operate the facility is for the city to consider the tax increment financing plan that's before you guys tonight. In terms of following the statutory procedure for enacting a TIF district, the City Council passed a resolution of intent that was the first official step in creating the TIF district back on August 14th. The Statutory Review Committee, which included representatives of the public at large and all of the affected taxing jurisdictions, met on October 15th and 19th and unanimously found that the project area and increment district are eligible under the Local Development Act, that the project would have positive financial impacts on business activities and each taxing jurisdiction, and provided a positive recommendation that the city approve the proposed project plan. The City Council held the first of two required public hearings on November 13th. At that meeting, we provided a little bit longer of an overview of how TIF works and how the project plan is structured. Since then, the Planning Commission reviewed the project plan on November 20th, and they recommended approval. So basically, in a very brief nutshell, the project plan creates a new 13-year ad valorem TIF 3 on the project site. And that 13 years is designed to accommodate 2 years of construction on the site for the plant to become operational, 10 years of operations, and then a 1-year contingency period in case construction or something else goes longer than anticipated. The project costs of $6.6 million is designed around our projected valuation of the plant for that 10-year period. $5 million of that would be payments to Salem Tube based on the amount of increment and ad valorem taxes they actually pay on the site. There's $100,000 set aside for implementation and administration costs, and then there's a $1.5 million contingency in case our valuation or projections are a little off. The project plan and the ordinance in front of you designates the Durant Industrial Authority as the principal entity to carry out and implement the plan. It also authorizes the city to assist in implementation if and when necessary. Funding for the project costs are designed to be a pay-as-you-go system where increment revenue will accumulate in the apportionment fund on an annual basis, and then DIA will simply write a check after they receive the increment revenue and the amount that was actually generated for that year. There's no debt proposed under this project plan. There we go. This is just a map to remind you guys where the project is located, right at the new US 70 bypass, Highway 78 and Country Club Road. Tonight, the city is holding its second public hearing designed to provide an opportunity for people who are for or against to voice their opinion before the council votes. And then following the public hearing, the City Council will consider an ordinance that actually approves the project plan and establishes TIF 3. Assuming that that actually passes tonight, the city will send a letter to the county assessor requesting that the county assessor certify the base assessed value for the TIF district. And then the county assessor will have 90 days to set that base assessed value. And then with that, any questions you guys have, I'm sure we'll be able to answer them. So,
Thank you, Jeff. Do council members have any questions for Paul, Mr. Batchelor, or Mr. Saban at this time? Before we open up the public hearing portion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a statement, please.
Okay.
Well, first of all, unemployment in this country is the lowest it's been in 50 years. And right now in Bryan County, the Choctaws are building a new building. It's they're gonna be hiring 1,000 workers. And if you ride all over town, there's help wanted signs. And being in business myself, I'm running into the same problem of not being able to find people to fill the jobs. And I can understand, and I want everybody to understand that I'm definitely for economic development. However, I don't understand why we have to give incentives to get businesses to come here now when the economy all over this country is booming. And I feel like that I'm speaking for a lot of the citizens, and whether you agree or disagree with me, I feel like I had to say this. I do not think this is the time. There would have been a time, and there has been a time when we started the Cardinal Tift. It was wonderful. There was a need. But right now, Cardinal is one of the companies that's begging for employees. So to me, when you have more jobs than you have people to fill them, you shouldn't have to give incentives to get people to come into your city. So I think that if the people want to come here, I think I would welcome them. All new businesses are welcome in our city. I think that it's wonderful to have businesses locate here. But when you got more jobs than you got people to fill them, I don't understand why we're having to give so many incentives to get them here. Thank you.
Any other comments from council members or questions? If not, we'll open up the, we will open up the public hearing portion. Which will allow members, not only council members, but members of the audience to ask questions and or speak in favor of or in opposition to any consideration. And at this time, I'll open up the floor. If anybody has any questions, comments, I would invite you to the podium, state your name, and we require your address, and we'll allow 3 minutes for you to speak. Anyone in the audience?
Jean Masoner, 1112 West University Boulevard, and I have a couple of questions. We've been told that this is going to be a pay-as-you-go with no debt. Okay, but the ordinance gives the DIA the authority to issue bonds. If this is going to be a pay-as-you-go, why would they need to issue a bond or a note? And if, you know, they issued a bond and the worst came to worst and the company folded, who's going to pay for that bond?
Is that in the form of a question, Ms. Masoner?
Yes.
Mr. Batchelor?
The answer to the first question is, while the authority is there in the documents, in the event any short-term debt was needed, none is needed, none is contemplated, and the Economic Development Agreement, which you have approved and the DIA has approved, does not require it or call for it, and it simply is not a part of the agreement. So unless there's some unforeseen circumstance, there would be no reason whatsoever to call on the authority or power to issue any debt. And if there were, the ability to issue any debt required by the, since it's a public trust, would require approval by this council. So you have the complete control and safeguard regarding that question.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And one other question, and this is more hypothetical. If, by chance, the council does not pass the TIF tonight, is the company still going to locate here? Or does it have to have the TIF to locate?
Under the terms of our agreement, the adoption of the tax increment district and the assistance in development financing is a precondition to the company's obligation to locate here and employ the people as per the agreement. Now, the company really wants to be here and ask for provisions in the agreement that would permit the company to come on the site and begin some pre-construction activities even before the transfer of title to the company, which I understand is what they've done. But that's a prudent business matter because the grading is low cost, low risk. But every day that you save on construction means the earlier time that that plant can be in production and that revenues can commence. So what we are seeing here is an evidence of the company's great interest in Durant and this location.
Okay. But I just feel like they jumped the gun by transferring the property and starting the process on a grant. Now, the grant I can understand because there's time constraints and stuff on those. But it just seems like somebody had second sight that it's going to pass, whether before it even comes before the council.
Well, I think it might be fair for us to say that the community has evidenced a great deal of interest in attracting the company here because of the quality of the employment that it would generate. And one of the reasons for framing a conditional development agreement on the front end was so that both the company and the community could signal to each other whether they had a significant mutual interest. And I think it's fair for the company to take the approval of that conditional development agreement as a reflection of the general attitude of the public officials of this community, even though it could not be, the project plan could not be officially approved at that time. It certainly was evidence of mutual interest of trying to bring this opportunity to fruition. So, and I would emphasize again that the company was interested in saving time wherever possible and bargained for a right for, at its risk, to go onto the site to begin preliminary or pre-construction activities so as to save time in the course of construction. And that seemed like a reasonable request, and that was acknowledged in the agreement which was approved.
Okay. I'm trying to understand the process, so thank you.
Those are good questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meissner. Anyone else in the audience? We're still under the public hearing portion. Questions, comments? Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else in the audience? Third and final call. Anyone else in the audience? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing portion of our agenda. And we'll move to item number 2 on our agenda, which is a rather lengthy agenda item, but for the record, so that it is clear, I will read it. Agenda item number 2 is to consider approval of Ordinance 1869, approving and adopting the Project Hickory Economic Development Project Plan pursuant to the Oklahoma Local Development Act, designating and adopting project area and increment district boundaries, confirming the establishment of a date for the creation of Increment District Number 3, City of Durant, adopting certain findings, authorizing the Durant Industrial Authority to carry out and administer the project plan, establishing a tax apportionment fund, declaring apportioned funds to be special funds of the Durant Industrial Authority, authorizing the use of increment revenues for the payment of certain project costs, authorizing the City of Durant to carry out certain provisions of the project plan, ratifying and confirming the actions, recommendations, and findings of the Durant Salem Tube Economic Development Project Plan Review Committee and the City of Durant Planning Commission, and directing continuing apportionment, providing for severability, and declaring an emergency. Is that the ordinance itself? And that is the ordinance that we are considering. Is there a section, I can't get it, is there a section 1 and 2, or?
It's 1 through 13.
Sir?
And then emergency is 14.
Oh, can get a copy here. Okay. Any further questions, or before we consider a motion for ordinance 1869?
I just have one quick question, and this is probably for Paul. So, with this being set up as I guess essentially the way he described it as a pay-as-you-go, is if they come in, develop this, get up and running, and they don't have enough employees to operate, and they have to close down, what is our liability? And say they go out of business, do we just stop collecting the tax and transferring it to them?
Our obligation is based on their performance. It's a set of mutual obligations.
We have no obligation other than whatever the project generates.
So if 2 years down the road, they go out of business, we stop collecting that money and sending it to
In
them?
fact, if they don't perform, they would have to pay us for the property at the appraised value.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Good question.
Paul, what did you say on the salaries that this was going to generate?
They have committed to 140 jobs at $55,000 per year. And partly in reference to your earlier comment, I think you did have a good point about the tight labor market. But I think we have twofold goals with the Industrial Authority to create more jobs, but also better paying jobs. And I think we still see that Bryan County jobs, the salaries, income lags behind other areas of Oklahoma, in the nation certainly, and we're trying to raise the average wage levels in Bryan County. So it's not just more jobs, it's better paying jobs.
Would this company be one of the highest paid in Bryan County?
Yeah, it would be one of the higher, and Steel Fab is 65,000, so it wouldn't be quite as high as Steel Fab, but around 55,000, which is higher, much higher than average.
So this is going to give people opportunity to pick and choose where they'd like to work. For
Right,
themselves.
it gives people more opportunity in Durant, certainly.
And probably people would move into Durant if they had a better job opportunity.
Well, I think moving in, and I think as people graduate from high school and looking for careers, I think they're more likely to stay in the area as opposed to having to move off to get a job.
Paul, I have a question. The 140 jobs.
Yes.
My understanding is these 140 jobs are created over a 5-year period. Is that correct?
Well, they would ramp up to 140 jobs, yes.
I mean, they wouldn't just open up and have
Right,
140
it wouldn't be
jobs.
140 the first day, although it could very well be sooner than 5 years. Thank you.
Hey, Paul, one other question.
Okay.
On this company coming in, what was one of the selling points for Durant? For wanting to locate?
One of the selling points is our location and just the track record of Durant in locating new industry, the success we've had, but they have, they're very heavy, Tubisex Durant is very heavy in supplying tubing to the refining industry. They have one of their largest customers, in fact, at Tulsa. They have customers in Houston, so being anywhere in the line between Tulsa and Houston is very attractive to them.
And one of the other things, when they did come in and make their presentation and vice versa with the DIA, I also remember the VOTEC system coming in
Right.
and discussing the training available pretty
Yeah.
much
VOTEC, very strong, right.
for training these individuals once they got here for this specific skill set that they need.
And one other thing, as far as the salaries go, Paul,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, CMC is paying high salaries, or is high.
Did pay what?
They're paying high salaries. Their
Yeah.
salaries are, I mean, that was
They're
part of
more
their.
than, they're at 65,000, yes. Their CMC is higher than this would be. I think they're averaging around 65,000, over 60,000, I know.
Any other questions for Paul?
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. we had a time to consider a motion.
Move to approve ordinance 1869, section 1 through 13.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ordinance 1869, sections 1 through 13. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Nay.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
A little out of order, but just part of my vote. I want to thank Darrell Mendez, Dennis Garrett representing, and Robert Holliday representing the Durant Industrial Authority in attendance tonight. A lot of legwork has gone on this project, and I just want to thank you for your attendance and for your due diligence in bringing this consideration to this council. My vote is yes, aye. Motion carries.
Motion to approve section 14.
Second.
Motion and a second for section 14. Clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Nay.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. Thank you all for attending, too.